Hi everyone, I'm Francesca Christian with On the Horizon, a program that celebrates new and exciting, upcoming creative work. Today I'm here with Lynda Miller, PhD, novelist, playwright, performer, and educator. Hi Lynn, welcome.
Hi, Francesca. It's great to be here.
Lynn has published 4 novels, and 3 of them are mysteries. The Day After Death, which was named a Lambda Award and a finalist for the Lascaux Fiction Prize, Death of a Department Chair, and her latest work, The Unmasking, published in 2020. We're very lucky to have Lynn here today to help us navigate the ins and outs of writing for the mystery genre. Lynn started writing at the age of 9, typing in red ink on an Underwood typewriter when her family moved from River Forest, Illinois to a farm 5 miles northeast of Devil's Lake, North Dakota. Her early writing practice eventually led her to a dynamic and varied career. In academia, Lynn taught writing and performance at leading institutions such as Penn State, the University of Southern California, and the University of Texas at Austin, where she was a professor in theater and dance. As a talented stage performer, she's created her own solo performances, bringing to life the voices of exceptional women in history such as Gertrude Stein, Edith Wharton, Victoria Woodhull, and Catherine Ann Porter. Today, she lives in Albuquerque, New Mexico with her wife and co-publisher, Lynda Miller, who is the art director, contributor, and curator for their various literary publications. In 2011, Lynn co-founded Bosque with Lisa Leonard Cook, an annual print journal that showcases fiction, nonfiction, poetry, and art. In 2016, Lynn and Lynda published a second magazine, Abiquiu Imprint, now in its 5th year, showcasing writers and artists with strong ties to New Mexico. So Lynn, my first question is this. What are some of the basic differences between a mystery novel and a detective novel?
Well, the mystery is the big umbrella term. The detective novel falls within the mystery genre, just like the true crime novel falls within it. But the differences are that a mystery does not necessarily have to have a dead body. It often does start that way. A detective novel almost always has a dead body in the first page or so. And many detective novels are more about the procedure of finding the murderer. Detectives show us the procedure of that. So that's kind of the basic difference. Whereas a mystery novel could be about a secret room in a house. It could be about a family secret. It could be about a missing person. So there are many, mysteries that fall within the mystery genre.
Mm-hmm. And how has the genre changed over time?
Well, interestingly, the very first story was Edgar Allan Poe's The Murders in the Rue Morgue, which was a detective story. That was in 1841. And then we have to wait about 20 years for a British writer, Wilkie Collins, to write the first psychological mystery, which was called The Moonstone. Mm-hmm. And that was very Victorian. Okay. So those are the beginnings. Oh, and then Sherlock Holmes appears in the 1880s. Okay. Mm-hmm. So then we go forward in time. And then the next big kind of deal in mystery writing was what they call the golden age of British mystery writing, which is the 1920s through the 50s. And there we have the queens of crime, Agatha Christie, Josephine Tey, Neo Marsh. But then after the 50s, or in the 50s, here in America, we start getting into noir fiction. So things like Dashiell Hammett's novels, James M. Cain, The Postman Always Rings Twice, isn't that it? And we get into more sort of hard-bitten mysteries. And then after that, I'll be brief here, but after that, we get into more issue-driven mysteries. We start getting gay detective writing, like Joseph Hanson's. We start getting into feminist novels. So we have strong heroines, like in Sue Grafton's work.
Mm-hmm.
We get into what the culture is about. And now we're into, well, there seem to be a lot of mysteries with girl or woman in the title, if you've noticed. That's kind of interesting. So the mystery genre just adapts to whatever's going on in the culture.
Mm-hmm. That's so interesting. I always think about the devices. You know, you talked about the locked room or the red herring. What are some of the structural elements that are particular to mystery novels, and why are they so addicting?
I know.
Yeah?
Mysteries are addicting because the plot carries us forward.
Uh-huh.
We start, and in a good mystery, we are dying to turn the page. Who is responsible? What group is responsible? In the locked room mystery, which Agatha Christie was very good at, we have the device of how did someone enter the room, commit the murder, leave, and yet there are no clues.
Mm.
The film Knives Out makes fun of that. You know, there's the big mansion, there's the suspects gathered in the mansion, and the murders start happening. So I think the plot driving forward in a mystery is a convention in it all by itself.
Mm-hmm.
The form of the mystery has a formula that readers expect, but then occasionally people disrupt that formula. I like to think I do that in The Unmasking. And there was another convention you just mentioned a minute ago when you mentioned the
Oh,
locked room. What was it?
the red
Oh,
herring.
the red herring, yes. But we always have a red herring. In other words, a suspect who seems to be the one, but really is just a diversion. And Alfred Hitchcock was very good at that.
Mm-hmm.
And then he invented the MacGuffin in his films. The MacGuffin is the catalyst for the mystery. But the red herring is a blind alley. So I think intrigue, the locked room, the addictive plot,
Oh.
figuring out who did it, all of these things hook us.
Well, now, you learned about writing by adapting and directing fiction and poetry for the stage. How has your performance practice informed your work as a writer?
Well, in a way, adapting, especially fiction for the stage, taught me the nuts and bolts of what is fiction. It allowed me to see how narrative works. It allowed me to see how dialogue and scene work.
Mm-hmm.
It also made me incredibly aware of environment. I think that the best mystery novels have an incredible sense of environment. So you think of Raymond Chandler, what do you think of? You think of Los Angeles, you think of all of those nitty gritty details of the streets. We have Hollywood nearby. So performing really taught me how the components of a story work together and how you can show things. It also showed me how objects have a life. And that's another thing Alfred Hitchcock was brilliant at in his films. He would make an object be like a character. So for instance, in Suspicion, where Cary Grant is going up the staircase, Alfred Hitchcock put a light bulb in a glass of milk so that as Cary Grant went up the staircase, the illumination of the milk against his face was this powerful, scary thing. So I think performing and adapting made me see the stage picture in writing.
Mm-hmm. The totality of that. You talk about the importance of beginning a
Yes.
novel, those critical opening pages. What is your approach here? And can I ask you to read from an opening page?
Absolutely. The approach of the beginning, I think a writer is usually seized by a situation. and the situation just grabs you. It's like you're walking your dog and you think of an idea of what if. For me, that what if is what starts the novel. Now, for some other people, they literally get a name in their head of a character. That happens to me sometimes also. But the beginning should be absolutely the seed of the whole novel. That first page should give you the tone, the voice, often the plot, not always. So that opening situation has to be gripping, and also, I believe, has to have some kind of risk in it, some kind of consequence, if you know what I mean. So I'll read the first page of Death of a Department Chair, which has some of the same characters as The Unmasking, which came out last year.
Okay.
When my friends first asked me to chronicle the misfortunes of last autumn, I refused, for who wishes to revisit the end of her world? The moment when the tenor of life forever changes its pitch is not one to sing about. But I found I could not forget either. Those events still haunt me. On a sunny, unremarkable Monday morning last October, Isabel Vittoria, chair of my department, a woman gifted with focused intelligence and some said an outsized sense of self-worth, was found slumped over her desk in her office on the 7th floor of Helmsley Hall. Her face was swollen, her neck bruised, and her collarbone broken. Certainly she was dead, and had been for some time, perhaps for as long as 2 days, since she was discovered on a Monday. Her murder, for all signs pointed to that fact, seemed shocking, even though we live in a country and a state noted for violence. After all, this is a college campus where the tiniest happenings are scrutinized, measured, and cataloged with paranoid zeal. In such a place, a misplaced poster can assume the magnitude of a public indiscretion. Therefore, the sight of a slain middle-aged professor with her clothes ripped from her less than perfect body is shocking indeed.
Oh.
And that's how that one begins.
And there's so much, as you said, you have to lay in so much to prepare. I am ready to read more. You know, that leads me to read more. And I think I'm hooked, right? I mean, it's working.
You want to be hooked. You want to be hooked.
I am hooked. I'm hooked.
Yeah.
3 of your novels situate the action in the upper echelons of academia. What is it about academia that makes it a suitable setting for a mystery novel?
Academia is the ultimate locked room, I think. So in many of our favorite novels, we have the isolated characters, you know, in the old house or whatever. Well, academia is a closed system. It's very hierarchical. As you know from teaching at the University of Texas, many people stay for many years. Mm-hmm. So a department can be made up of people who are simply there for decades. Now, when people are stuck together in the locked room, we have jealousies, we have anger, we have petty slights that are never forgiven. So I think academia offers a world, and it's full of marvelous details and characters, but ultimately it's the closed system of it. So people's perceptions get locked in also. Mm-hmm. And that makes for a lot of fun and a lot of dangerous moments, if you could say.
Lots of drama.
Lots of drama.
Some of our best films are adapted from novels. Can you give us some examples of that?
Here's a mystery that is a brilliant adaptation, and it's a film noir. It's Double Indemnity, which James M. Cain wrote. It's a 50s novel. The film with Barbara Stanwyck and Fred McMurray is a standout, and it still holds up, I think. A non-mystery that I love very much is Edith Wharton's The Age of Innocence, which Martin Scorsese brought to the screen with Daniel Day-Lewis and Michelle Pfeiffer. What makes a good adaptation, in one sense, is decluttering. You can't do the whole novel in the adaptation. So you really have to minimize and weave the plot around a few high points and low points. Mm-hmm. So a good adaptation captures the tone, the essence of the novel. It can capture the voice of the novel through the art direction and the dialogue, etc. But in general, it has to encapsulate in a shorter form what that novel really stands for.
Mm-hmm. Yes, because it is condensed.
Yes.
Yeah.
One thing you and I talked about earlier was Edith Wharton's definition of writing a novel.
Oh, yes.
The three things that she said were that to start a novel, the beginning is a walk in the spring wood. The end of the novel is a night with a lover. But the middle of the novel is the Gobi Desert. I just wanted to get that in because it's so marvelous.
It is priceless. That's a great quote. Now, we've talked about writing a mystery, but what are some of the mysteries of writing that you encounter in your work?
Well, one of them is you start out with, you think, a really good situation, a dramatic situation. The characters populate the situation. But just like in everyday life, people do not behave the way you want them to. You think when you're a writer, you could make them behave. But at a certain point in writing, for me, and this is actually the best part, the characters just take over. And you may think that the novel is going in one direction, but the characters have decided they are going this way. And all you can do is jump on the train. So I call that the organic logic of the story. That at a certain point, the story begins, again, like a life, it begins to have a coherence. And in the case, certainly, of writing mysteries, it has to have logic, because mystery readers, I think, are very attracted to logic. They're interested in events and causality. So if this person is killed, what are the ripples and reverberations down the line? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So those are some of the mysteries that I encounter. And then, of course, there's getting stuck, but that happens to everyone.
Yeah. Now, you have written a nonfiction book, Find Your Story, Write Your Memoir. Tell us more about that.
Well, a friend and I co-wrote this book with Lisa Leonard Cook. We were teaching a class in memoir writing, and we discovered that many memoir writers just wanted to write about their lives, but they had no sense of plot or action. They didn't really know how to tell a story. So Find Your Story, Write Your Memoir is really about applying the rules and dictates of fiction to memoir to make it a really dazzling story. And the book is full of exercises on how to do that.
You're setting a scene in a stage.
That's right. Yeah. You're making it active. You're showing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, it's so different. And I was saying you're doing a public service by helping people to write their memoirs in a more expanded way. Lastly, I want to raise a very important question about the livelihood and survival for many writers. Where should we go to buy books?
Well, I always encourage people to support their independent stores wherever they live. And if they live in a tiny, tiny town that has no independent store, they can order from places like Powell's in Portland, Oregon, or they can go to something that was created during COVID, which is bookshop.org.
Oh, okay.
And in bookshop.org, a small percentage of every book sold goes to an independent bookstore. You can even designate which bookstore you want it to go to. So I really encourage people not to just use Amazon. I mean, I'm glad we have Amazon because it's accessible, but Amazon is a monopoly, and it controls prices in a monopolistic way,
Mm-hmm.
which is very hard for writers.
Mm-hmm. So by buying from an independent
So
bookstore,
go buy
more money goes to the writer
and to a business,
and to a business. Yeah.
right? And you're supporting a local business.
Oh
Yeah.
gosh. Lynn, thank you. Thank you so much. I'm so sorry to say we're at the end of our time here, but I so appreciate you sharing your work and your insights with all of us here today. It's been such a pleasure. For those of you
Well, it's
viewing this,
always a pleasure to talk to you.
oh gosh, it's been so much fun. We found another way to collaborate, didn't we? It's so great. For those of
We
you
did.
viewing this program, to learn more about Lynn's work and to keep up with the progress, just below the YouTube recording you're watching right now, there's a button that says Show More. Click on that and you'll get a list of the topics we've discussed today and a link to Lynn's brand new program, The Unruly Muse, now available on Apple Podcasts. A half hour of performances of original songs, stories, and poems by contemporary and classic writers, along with commentary by Lynn and her co-host and collaborator, John Modaff. So with that, we'll say goodbye. This is Francesca Christian on the horizon with Lynn C. Miller, signing off. Thanks, Lynn.
Bye.
Great.